episode of Get Sharp. I am Joe Fortenbaugh, and today we are here at the beautiful sportsbook at the Wynn Resort and Casino here in Las Vegas, Nevada. The man to my right is Teddy Covers. Teddy, thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Joe.
Longtime veteran handicapper. He's been in the game for a long time, been living in Vegas about, what, 10 years now?
1998 was my first football season. So what's it, 2011? This is my 14th football season in Las Vegas.
14th year, and we're here to talk about something that's near and dear to the hearts of fantasy football players, so you guys should be paying particular attention because we're switching it up today. We're going to be talking about NFL prop bets, Teddy. And when you and I spoke earlier this week, you were talking about how this is something that fantasy owners should pay particular attention to. Now, if I'm a rookie, I'm a blank slate, look at me like that, and I don't know anything about prop bets, give me an example of what a prop is and why fantasy owners should be paying so much attention to it.
Well, prop bets are real simple. A lot of them are over-unders. So you'll have Mark Sanchez over-under 212 passing yards on Monday night against the Miami Dolphins. Or you'll have LaDainian Tomlinson over-under 52.5 rushing yards in that ball game. Or you'll have whoever's going to quarterback for Miami will have, over-unders on number of completions, number of touchdown passes, number of interceptions thrown. You'll have it for running backs, number of carries, number of yards, same thing for wide receivers. It's very similar to what fantasy players are doing in their heads every week, saying, what's going on with this matchup? Is it a matchup I can exploit? Do I want to be benching this guy or starting this guy? It's the same story with the prop wagers, but you're actually betting money on these over-unders.
So when we're sitting here each week and we're talking about which players we want to put in our starting lineups, which players we want to sit based on matchups, we can take this information, we can take these resources, and we can apply them to prop bets, and we can end up turning a profit. What you're saying is this is a market that fantasy owners should be in.
Look, fantasy sports is gambling. I mean, you can dress it up however you want to do it. The NFL likes to call it, it's just fantasy. Everyone knows you're not in a fantasy league for free. You're in a fantasy league to make money. And that's why you pay attention to this kind of stuff. Betting on props is the exact same thing. You're not in this to have fun. You're in this to make money. It's a job. And it's just another way of getting at the same type of things that type of analysis you're already using to make your fantasy decisions as to who's going to start and who's going to sit this week. You're 100% correct, Joe, when it comes to that's the thought process here is we're taking stuff that you're already doing. How do we make extra money on this? How can we gamble in a positive expectation manner and find these proposition wagers that are likely to have a positive return on a week-in, week-out basis?
All right, so let's say, for example, we've got Week 6 coming up in the NFL. When you take a look at college props, pro props, baseball props, what is it that stands out to you? Is there any specific approach you have to finding value or to finding something that you know is going to give you an edge?
Well, again, I'm in this game for the long term, which means I'm not stressed out if I don't win every prop bet that I make. I don't win every week with the prop bets, but I certainly, over the course of a season, I'm going to make more positive expectation wagers than negative expectation wagers. Positive expectation wagers meaning that you have a good percentage chance to come out with money in your pocket. Negative expectation, of course, the other way around, where the house is going to have the edge for you. So you talk about the type of things you're going to use. It's the same thought process using already for fantasy. You're going to go down, you're going to look at the matchups. How does this offensive line match up against this defensive line? How does this secondary match up against this receiving corps? What's the coach's game plan in these type of ball games? Is this coach a coach who's going to run it up when they're up 3 touchdowns in the second half, or is he just going to hand the ball off 20 times and run out the clock that way? The same thought process you're already using for fantasy mesh very, very well with the product.
Let's talk about a Wednesday night. We'll switch to baseball just for an example. We were talking on the phone. You love the idea of Doug Fister, the pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, less than 6 strikeouts in that game. Fister goes 7 1/3, but only strikes out 3 guys. So the under in that came through. What went into that process?
Well, the thought process on Fister was, number one, that the Rangers had seen him before, twice since the All-Star break, 6 times altogether. So that Texas had more familiarity than with some of the lineups that Fister was dominating throughout the course of August, September. Number 2, Texas doesn't strike out a whole lot. Number 3, Fister, as a team, the Rangers they score runs and they don't take a lot of bad at-bats, they don't take a lot of whiffs. So number 3 is that the bottom line was I thought Fister was a little bit overrated and overvalued coming in the game. Didn't work out from a side perspective if you like Texas there. Didn't work out from a total perspective if you like the over there. But when it comes to we call it the derivatives marketplace. Just like their financial derivatives, where you're taking mortgages and chopping them up into little pieces and finding different ways to get at it. Another way to get at an anti-Fister yesterday was to take a look at the under 6 strikeouts. And that type of wager, again, the thought process maybe Pfister's not quite as good as he was down the stretch, the marketplace overvalued him a little bit. And of course, yesterday only 3 strikeouts for Pfister. That was a ticket that I was able to cash.
So we're here in Las Vegas, and there's going to be guys that are able to do prop bets online, and there's guys that live here in Las Vegas that are going to be able to place prop bets here. If they're looking for a specific sportsbook in Vegas, is there one that stands out to you that offers a wide variety? And online, is there any place that offers, you know, an abundance of props that would give you an advantage?
Well, certainly when we're talking about betting these props, the juice is as important as anything. There are sportsbooks that are going to charge 10 or 15 cents juice, which is a commission that they take on all winning bets. And there are other sportsbooks that are going to charge more than that, 20, 25 cents. The professional bettors tend to stay away from the sportsbooks that have the bigger juice, because that makes it that much more difficult for the bettors to win. The number always the key factor here. It's just like if you're going to decide, hey, is Mark Sanchez worth an 8th round pick, or is he a guy I want to take in the 2nd round? Obviously, you know, an 8th round pick for Sanchez. It's the same thought process when you're looking at numbers. Is this a good value here, or maybe not so much? When we talk about books to recommend, certainly here in Vegas, in general, the bigger books are going to offer more props. So we're talking about the M and Cantor Gaming. We're talking about the Hilton, who probably is, you know, as good or better than a prop menu than anyone else in town. That would be the 2 that stand out to me, Cantor and Hilton, in Las Vegas for the best proposition available. But, you know, you find props at Jerry's Nugget. I mean, you go around town and find props sometimes in out-of-the-way places that you might be surprised at. Particularly, again, we're talking about the Monday night TV game, the Sunday night TV game, a lot of times the Saturday night TV games for college football. That's where you're going to get the majority of these proposition wagers out there. When we're talking about offshore, again, it's the big players, it's the biggest ones. You know, whether it's Pinnacle, whether it's Chris and Bookmaker, whether it's Greek, those tend to be the shops that offer the most props. And when they offer the most, of course, the amount of volume that they're doing on these allow them to charge a smaller commission or smaller vig, less juice on these. You're only laying 10 or 15 cents instead of the you know, the good 10 or 15 cents, not the 20 or 25 cents that I warned about earlier.
All right, so week 6 in the NFL is in a couple days. Obviously, these props might not come out until closer to game time, so there are good numbers out there. But when you look ahead at some of the matchups that are on the schedule, do any games jump out to you and your thought process of thinking, hey, this game might have some good props because we've got some good offensive matchups or we've got some good defensive matchups? Well,
let's talk about the Monday night game with the Jets and the Dolphins. A game that's not going to be particularly interesting when it comes to marquee matchups. You know, the Miami's not any good this year, and the Jets, you know, we'll see if they're any good this Monday night or not. So the only reason people are going to be watching this game is either they have a bet on it, or they got fantasy action on it, or they got prop wagers on it. You know, so we talk about some of the things we might want to look at this week. And again, for proposition wagers, you don't see a lot of stuff 2 days ahead of time, 3 days ahead of time. Really, most of the prop wagers, just about all the prop wagers, come up on the day of the game, with the exception of Super Bowl weekend. You know, Super Bowl, you get a full week to go through all this stuff, and that's one of the things that makes Super Bowl one of the best weeks of the year, maybe the best week of the year for professional bettors here in Vegas. But let's just take some props, for example. What have we seen from the Dolphins so far this season? Well, we've seen a secondary that hasn't been able to stop anybody. Okay, they've had 2 weeks to prepare. Guess what? The talent level for that secondary is still problematic. Now, what's going on in New York? Well, let's see. We have everybody on the Jets, whether it comes from the fans, whether it comes from the media, whether it comes from in the locker room. They're all freaking out on Brian Schottenheimer because Schottenheimer's not calling enough pass plays, and he wants the Jets to be this, you know, so we have pressure on the Jets to throw more. We have a weak Dolphins secondary. We have a Jets team that just lost 3 in a row. You put those 3 factors together, you say maybe this is the week that we look at Mark Sanchez to go over in terms of completions, or to go over in terms of yardage. You look at the Jets receivers, and maybe this is a week where you want Santonio Holmes, yes, to catch a touchdown type of scenario. Now that Derek Mason's not taking all the, well, I guess Mason was taking Curley's numbers, but the bottom line is I would look for some of these Jets passing props, whether it's from the quarterback, whether it's from the receivers, whether it's from the touchdown perspective, whether it's from the pass attempts perspective, whether it's from the completions perspective. Some of these passing props for the Jets, I'm looking for some overs on Monday night. Similarly for Miami, well, they're going to go in with a new quarterback. They're going to probably look to shorten the game. Maybe you look at some of the Dolphins props to emphasize running the football a little bit more, because I would expect that's what Miami's going to try to do coming out of their bye.
And that's been one of the weaknesses for the Jets this year, is slowing down the run. So you've got to figure if Daniel Thomas is healthy, the rookie from Kansas State, give him the football, try to keep the Jets offense off the field. Although against the Ravens, that's exactly the unit they wanted on the field. He's Teddy Covers, ladies and gentlemen. Teddy, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Joe. Thanks for having me.
You can find him on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. That'll appear with a link in the article. You can also find him on Covers.com and SportsMemo.com. And you got a podcast coming next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we're not going to hype the podcast too much yet, but you'll see it on Covers starting next week.
Well, you can find it on my Twitter account too, because we'll be pumping it out. But for Teddy and myself, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and enjoy the games this weekend.